Hello and welcome to Matt's Yard Maintenance and Garage. Today I'm going to take you through the whole process of how I built this flatbed. So the first thing I have to do is set up my main rails on this frame right here. The only problem is I've got these rivets right here. So the plan is to take this flat bar and cut 2-inch pieces, set them on the underside of this rail and weld them to it. And that'll give me the space I need to clear the rivets on the frame rail. These are the welds with my big gun. So my next step is that I have to cut a hole in this frame right here for the gas filler neck. All right, so I wanted it right about 48.5 inches. The other thing I have to take in consideration is the size of the filler neck itself. Come down my 48.5 inches. 48.5. So we got 5 inches. I'm going to mark it at 2.5 to get my center point. Wanted to do 3.5 tall by 5 inches wide. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come to that intersection. I'm going to go 2.5 inches, right? Because we want it to be in the center. So there's one mark right there. That's the end of the 5, and that's the end of the other 5. So that's 5 inches sideways. All right, so next we want to do 3.5 inches, but what we have to do is cut that number in half. So we're going to be at 1 3/4 inches. So I'm going to take this, I'm going to line this up on the 1 3/4 inch mark. I'm going to make a mark down here, and then I'm going to make a mark in this one at 3.5. All right, so that's what I got to cut out. How do I want to do this? All right, so I'm sitting here trying to figure out how I'm going to make this oval shape. It just so happens that this spool of wire here is 3.5 inches wide. So I'm going to put it right up to this mark on this side. I'm just going to kind of trace around it to the middle mark. I'm going to come to the other one. Straighten these lines out. All right, that right there is the hole I want to cut. All right, first thing I got to do is I can turn these gas on. We're going to use oxyacetylene to cut that hole. We want to open the acetylene first, the oxygen second. We want to make sure our regulators are out. The next thing we want to do is we want to slowly crack this. All you need to do is really give it a little bit of a turn, not too much. Now we can start to dial in our regulator. I want this set at about 5, all right? You see this gauge going up? And then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get the handle and I'm gonna slowly crack open the acetylene. I'm gonna open this up a little bit more till we get about 5. I'm gonna shut that down. All right, that's set. The next thing I wanna do is open up this oxygen. We're gonna open this up all the way. Same thing, really slow. Just like that, okay? The next thing we're gonna do is dial in our oxygen until we get it to about 25. That's the inside one. So we're gonna dial this in. It's starting to come up. Now I'm gonna pull the trigger and raise it till we get to 25. I think we should be good right there. Now we're set and ready to rock and roll. All right, make sure you got the protective eyewear here. Make sure it's the right shade. I forget what shade this is, but you should be able to find it online somewhere. So what I want to do is I'm going to start about like right about here and work my way into it. All right, we're going to turn that up till the sip goes away. Right about there. I'm going to start coming in with the oxygen. Right about there. And there we go. All right, now what I'm going to do is this is shut and this is shut. I'm going to close the oxygen all the way, open the oxygen up, and let it all bleed out of the lines here. Now that's open all the way, all the gauges are down. I'm going to turn back the regulator till I don't feel any pressure on it. Same thing for the acetylene. We're going to shut it. We're going to open the valves. We're going to let it bleed out the line. That's all done. Now we're going to take and we're going to relieve the pressure off the regulator. There we go, right there. Now I'm going to close both of these, and now everything is bled out of the lines. There's no pressure on the gauges and it's all shut down. Next, what I'm going to do is clean this up with a 36 grit flat disc. All right, so what we got here is I got my two frames laid out. For my application, it's going to be 34 inches from outside rail to outside rail. So I got 34 on the money here, and I got 34 over here. Okay, so that's all set. Our next step is we're going to start laying out our C-channel. So now we're going to start cutting the C-channel to length. I ordered mine a little longer than I needed to just because I didn't know the overall width of the bed at the time. I was still trying to make that up in my mind. All right, what I'm using today is a portaband to cut the ends of the C-channel. You can use a grinder if you want. It all works. Also, just so you know, I'm using a soapstone to mark on the metal. You can get these at Tractor Supply or online or anything like that. All right, what I'm doing here is the piece that I just cut, I'm going to lay on top of the other piece that I'm going to cut here. And that way I can put the blade right up against here. I can get that perfect cut. They're all going to be exactly the same size. Make sure you mark this one as the template. I'm going to put a T on it, so I'm going to keep using this one. Don't switch to this one. Keep using this one as a reference. All right, there we go, perfectly cut. All right, so right now what I want to do is I want to find roughly the middle of all this C-channel, okay? Doesn't have to be perfect. We're about 80 inches, so I'm going to come down to 40 inches. Put a little mark. Like I said, this doesn't have to be exact right now at this moment. So that is roughly the center on all of those. Next, what I want to do is I want to put down a mark where my first C-channel is going to land. My first one's going to land 16 inches from the front. So I'm going to put a little mark. And then I'm going to put a mark at 16 over here. So that'll be the front of that C-channel. So at that mark, I'm going to come across. I'm going to find roughly where 17 is. I'm going to put a mark on the ground at 17. I'm going to kind of eyeball it, okay? I'm going to put them on the marks. Now that is roughly the center. From there, I'm going to measure from the inside of this to the end. They should be the same on this side as it should be on this side. I'm right where I want to be, so now I'm going to just start to tack this up. So I wanted to go over and show you how I set up my welder. This is a Hobart Handler 140. It runs off 115. First, we're going to come over to the gas over here. We're going to take our regulator. We're going to spin it out till it's nice and loose and there's no pressure on it, okay? Then we're going to crack open this valve very slow. You're going to watch your main pressure come up, okay? All right, I got about 2,000 pounds of pressure in there. Next, what I want to do is I want to spin the regulator in. I want my working pressure to be around 20, 22, okay? I'm going to make sure the wire speed is all the way down, okay? Because when we go to do this, you have to pull the trigger on the welder handle and you don't want to be pouring out a ton of wire, okay? So turn the machine on. What I'm going to do while I hold the trigger down is just bring this up right there. Now we should land on it every time. We got 22 pounds of pressure coming out. Okay, so now I'm going to set the machine to 5, which is the voltage. That's max voltage. I'm going to put the wire speed at about 45. All right, these are tack welded for the moment. I'm going to lay out my far end piece, and then I'm going to show you a little trick. All right, 17. We're at about right there. I'm going to go this way, just a hair. All right, from left to right is where I want to be. I'm going to take a measurement from here. We're at 13, 5/8, 13, and 5/8. And we're going to take the last measurement, the outside frame rails. Just make sure nothing's moved. And we're at 34 inches. All right. This is perfectly in place. I'm going to tack this up. Alright, so what I did here is I took both of my end pieces that are going to be the rails at the end here. I stacked them one on top of the other so I could get the height, but I'm just pushing it up against the C channel. And what I'm going to do is when I go to lay out all the C channel in between, now I don't have to measure because this one's set and that one's set. So now all I have to do is figure the inside distance, and all I have to do is butt it up to this and, you know, come back over before we tack anything. Make sure this is tight to that one, and then we can tack that into place. And after those are all tacked into place and I'm happy with the measurements, we'll weld them all up and we'll start putting these rails on. This is right where I want it to be. We're going to tack this up. tacked into place and I'm good with that side. I just want to take this side, I just want to put it up against there. I want to make sure everything's nice and flush. And just like that, I don't have any gaps. But that's it, it's good to go. I gotta flip this whole thing over and we gotta do gussets. Don't try that at home. All right, for these gussets, they're about 1/4 inch, and what I want to do is turn the voltage on this machine all the way up to 5. Wire speed's gonna be about 45. And we're gonna see how that works. All right guys, so it's been a couple days. Unfortunately, I had to order some gussets. I didn't have time to make any. I got a lot of stuff going on lately. And so the gussets are from Core Mark Metals. I just got them online. I'll show you a picture of the box that I got. These are 4" by 4", and they're about 1/4 inch thick. And so we're gonna weld these into place. Okay, so I lost some footage, but just so you can follow along and understand the next part of this video, the plan was to do a side rail, a rectangle side rail with a 3" C channel and like a 2x8 or a 2x10. So here's where I ran into issues. The metal place that I went to get the side rails from only sold this in 2x4 or 2x6. There was no 2x5. And to order 2x5 was going to be super expensive. So I came up with a plan, because when you put the 1.5" with a 3", well, you get 4.5 inches. That's for the wood and the seat channel. So this is only 4 inches. So you can kind of see my dilemma. If I go to the bottom, I'm gonna be left with wood hanging up top, which isn't gonna look right at all. And if I go to the top, you're gonna have the bottom part that's you're gonna see from the side. So what I decided to do was to take and to cut a part of this out, and you weren't gonna see the underside, okay? And that's what's happening next. This still has plenty of support. Some people are gonna get all butt hurt and be like, oh, there's no support there anymore. It's got plenty of support. Trust me, it's got plenty. Not to mention, this isn't gonna hold a ton of weight. This is just an old truck that I wanna use from time to time. I just wanna put stuff on it, okay? It's fine. And one more thing, in the middle of making this video, I got a plasma cutter for like 50% off, so I had to jump on it. Never owned one before, never used one before, okay? So this was me using it for the first time. The first 2 cuts that I had made were with a grinder and something else. I think maybe the Portaband or something I tried. I was like, nothing was working out. And I was like, you know what? Let's just use the plasma cutter. Well, you'll see the results. All right, here we go. That was way better. Way better. right, so what we're going to do next is we're just going to clean this up with a 40 grit flat disc. All right, there we go. Looks nice and clean. Just like that. Now to do the rest of them. All right, so we've cut down the end of our C-channels, and I have the boards underneath for the correct height for the side rails. So we're gonna take some measurements, bring the side rails in, get them into position, and then just tack them up. All right, so I have to get my side rails to match up from front to back where it needs to be, okay? So the front is gonna be right on the edge of the front of this rail, okay? So what I'm actually gonna do is I'm gonna take a measurement off this rail. I'm gonna come to the inside, and I'm gonna measure to the front of this C-channel. I put an X on it to make sure this is gonna be my reference C-channel here. It has come to exactly 47 inches. Now, what I can do is if you wanted the end of that to match up with the end of that, you bring your piece in, you take your tape measure, you come down to here, and then you'd find, and you'd match 47 up on this face right here. So I'm at 46 1/4. I gotta move up 3/4 of an inch. Let's try that again. All right, I'm a little over 47. I gotta come back again. All right, now I'm right at 47, okay? So that's how I match the front of this with the front of this, okay? But with my build, I'm doing it a little bit different. I'm doing angled corners, okay? For me to do that, I had to take 2 inches off the front and off the back. So what I'm actually gonna do is I'm gonna take that and I'm gonna measure that to 45. All right, right there, 45, right on the money. So now, if I take a measurement from the end to the face of this, I should have the same measurement from there to there minus 2. All right, so I have 49 inches, okay? And if I measure, now I got 47. So I am right where I want to be. Just so you know, this is 1/8 inch rectangle tubing that we're using, and we're securing it to 3-inch C-channel, okay? The settings I'm going to be using on the Hobart here are going to be, the voltage is going to be 5, the wire speed is going to be 30. Our gas, I'm going to set it about 22 psi. All right, again, make sure the seam, the welded seam on that rectangle tubing is on the inside, okay? Take your measurement again, make a tack weld, and then take the measurement one more time just to make sure nothing moved, nothing's out of place before we get too far along, okay? Alright, make my first tack weld. I just want to double check. That's just the person I am. I'm right where I want to be. Alright, that side is done. Alright, we are all tacked up. Alright, so now that those pieces are tacked into place, I'm going to take my other rectangle tubing just as a reference to make sure that I did everything correctly, okay? This isn't going to be the final layout. This is just to check to make sure I did everything right. So let's bring this piece in. So I can look down and I can tell that that matches right up with the front of the rail, right? I got a nice tight corner. I'm butted right up against the end. I got another nice tight corner and I'm butted right up against the end. That means I know I'm even from left to right. I did my job correctly, okay? That matches right to the end of the rail there. All right, so I cut this piece to length, this rear piece right here, right? And I'm gonna bring you down to the corner and I'm gonna show you exactly what my plan is here. And my plan is to, those pieces I cut, I'm gonna make this corner, so basically, we're gonna grind it a little bit, and this is not the final resting spot, but just to kind of give you the idea, these are what my corners are gonna look like, okay? All right, guys, that's the end of part 1. Make sure you hit that subscribe button so when part 2 becomes available, you will be notified. All right, guys, well, that's it. If you like the video, make sure to give it a thumbs up, share, and subscribe. And don't forget to leave a comment down below. And if you like this video, check out these videos. That one's kind of cool. I like that one. That one's cool, too. That one's my favorite.